They thought the animal was only watching. No one realized it was waiting. At first, everything felt ordinary, almost calm. The forest stretched endlessly, thick with towering trees and low-hanging mist that clung to the ground like a living thing. The air was heavy, damp, and quiet in a way that made even experienced travelers uneasy, though none of them said it out loud. Silence in places like this was never empty. It was loaded. They had been walking for hours, following a narrow trail barely visible beneath leaves and broken branches. The guide walked ahead, confident machete in hand, cutting through undergrowth with slow, practiced movements. Behind him were two researchers and a cameraman documenting wildlife patterns deep in a region rarely entered by humans. Their goal was simple on paper: observe, record, leave. No interference, no risks taken unnecessarily. That was the plan. Somewhere behind them, unseen and unheard, something moved. It did not rush. It did not make a sound. It did not reveal itself. The animal stayed low, using the terrain perfectly: fallen logs, thick bushes, uneven ground. Its body blended into the shadows so completely that even if someone had turned around at the right moment, they might have seen nothing at all. This was not curiosity. This was assessment. Predators that survive long enough learn one rule above all others: do not waste energy. Every movement must have a purpose. Every decision must increase the chance of success. The animal had already noticed them long before they ever sensed anything was wrong. It had watched their pace, their spacing, the way their attention drifted forward instead of outward. It learned quickly. The humans believed the danger lay ahead. The danger was already behind them. One of the researchers stopped briefly to adjust his pack. He felt it then. Not fear, not panic, just a strange pressure between his shoulders. The kind of feeling that makes you turn your head for no logical reason. He glanced back. Nothing, just trees, shadows, stillness. He exhaled and told himself it was nothing more than exhaustion. Long hours in unfamiliar terrain played tricks on the mind. The forest did that. It made people imagine things. He tightened the straps and hurried to catch up with the others. Above, a bird suddenly took flight, wings beating sharply through the air. The sound echoed longer than it should have. The guide paused for half a second, eyes scanning the tree line. Animals reacted first. They always did. "Did you hear that?" one of the researchers asked. The guide nodded slowly. Yes. But he did not say what he was thinking, because he knew the difference between an animal fleeing and an animal being displaced. This was the second kind. Still, they kept moving. Stopping for too long in the forest was never wise. Whatever had caused the disturbance was probably gone by now, they told themselves. Large predators avoided groups. Everyone knew that. Numbers meant safety. What they did not understand was that some predators did not see groups as obstacles. They saw patterns. The cameraman lagged slightly behind, focused on adjusting his equipment. The lens caught fragments of the environment: leaves shaking gently, light filtering through branches, the faint movement of insects. To anyone watching the footage later, nothing would seem unusual. Just another forest, just another walk. But if you looked closely enough, frame by frame, there was a moment, less than a second, where something darker than the shadows shifted in the background. It was already closer than anyone realized. The animal had chosen its target. It was not the strongest, not the fastest, not the one in front. Predators rarely chose those. It focused on the one who drifted even slightly out of rhythm with the others. The one whose attention was divided. The one who believed the threat would announce itself. Minutes passed, then more. The forest seemed to close in, trees growing denser, the path narrowing. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. Sweat ran down back, soaking clothes, masking other smells, important smells that might have warned them sooner. The guide raised his hand suddenly, signaling for everyone to stop. They froze. Somewhere nearby, a branch snapped, not loudly, not suddenly, deliberately. Every instinct screamed at them to turn around, but none of them moved. In places like this, movement could be a mistake you never corrected. They listened, hearts pounding, trying to locate the sound. Nothing followed, no charge, no roar, no warning. The guide lowered his hand slowly. "Stay close," he said quietly. They obeyed. And behind them, hidden just beyond their line of sight, the animal remained perfectly still, muscles coiled, breathing controlled, eyes locked on its chosen target. It had not missed its chance. It was simply waiting for the right one. The group moved again, but nothing felt the same after that sound. Every step seemed louder than before. Leaves crunched under boots. Fabric brushed against branches, breath came heavier. Each noise felt like an announcement, a signal sent deep into the forest that something vulnerable was passing through. The guide adjusted his pace, slowing slightly, forcing everyone into a tighter formation. He had seen this before, not often, but enough to recognize the pattern. This was no random disturbance. Some predators tested boundaries first. They watched reactions. Fear had a smell and hesitation had a rhythm. The animal behind them was still there. It had not followed recklessly. It mirrored their movements, staying just far enough away to remain unseen, close enough to strike if the moment appeared. The researchers whispered to each other, trying to rationalize what they felt. Large predators avoided humans, they repeated silently. Attacks were rare. Statistics were comforting until they weren't. The forest, however, did not operate on statistics. It operated on opportunity. The cameraman stumbled briefly on uneven ground. It was nothing. He caught himself instantly. But that half-second mattered. The animal noticed the disruption immediately. Its ears twitched, body lowering even further, weight shifting forward with almost mechanical precision. This was the signal it had been waiting for. But it still did not move. Predators that survive long enough learn patience. Rushing led to injury. Injury led to death. The animal had learned this lesson well. Instead of attacking, it adjusted its angle, circling slowly, using a cluster of thick vegetation to change position without revealing itself. It was no longer directly behind them. It was to the side now. The guide felt it then, not as fear but as certainty. He stopped again, this time more abruptly. "Something's wrong," he said, voice low. The others looked at him, eyes wide. "What kind of something?" one asked. He did not answer immediately. He scanned the surroundings, focusing on places most people ignored. The spaces between trees, the shadows beneath fallen logs, the subtle distortions where foliage didn't quite sit naturally. "Back up," he finally said, slowly. They began to retreat, steps cautious, eyes darting in every direction. The cameraman tried to keep filming, hands trembling despite years of experience. His lens swept across the forest, capturing nothing but green and brown and darkness. And then, suddenly everything went quiet. No insects, no birds, no wind. Silence like that did not happen by accident. The animal froze as well, muscles tight, body flattened against the ground. Its tail lay still, breath shallow enough not to disturb the leaves around it. It waited, letting the humans make the next mistake. Fear made creatures predictable. One of the researchers whispered, "I think it's watching us." The guide nodded once. "It is. Can you see it?" "No," he said, "that's worse." The group huddled closer together, backs nearly touching, rotating slowly as they scanned their surroundings. The forest offered no clear enemy, no obvious threat, just endless places where something could be hiding. The animal shifted slightly, repositioning its hind legs. This was the closest it had been. Only a few meters separated predator from prey. From this distance it could smell sweat, hear heartbeats, feel vibrations through the ground. Still it did not attack, because something wasn't right. The group was tighter now, more alert, less vulnerable. The animal understood this instinctively. It adjusted its strategy, retreating just enough to remain unseen while staying close, waiting for fatigue, waiting for fear to erode discipline. Minutes stretched into long, unbearable stretches of time. The humans tried to move again slowly, carefully, every sense straining for the slightest hint of movement. Then it happened. A sudden crash echoed through the forest, not behind them but ahead. A large animal burst through undergrowth, fleeing in panic. The distraction was perfect. Every human turned toward the noise, every single one. That was the opening. The animal lunged, not toward the center of the group, not toward the guide, but toward the one who hesitated, the one who turned a fraction of a second slower than the others. The cameraman. The forest exploded into chaos, a blur of motion, a guttural snarl, a scream cut short. The guide spun, reaching for his flare, shouting commands that were lost in the panic. The cameraman fell backward, camera crashing to the ground as something heavy slammed into him. Claws tore into fabric, teeth snapping inches from his throat. The animal had committed. And now there was no turning back. But even as it attacked, the animal was not reckless. It adjusted its grip, seeking control rather than immediate kill. This was not hunger alone. This was dominance, precision, survival. A burst of light and heat tore through the darkness, exploding just feet from the animal's head. The sudden brightness disoriented it, forcing it to recoil. It released its grip for half a second. Just long enough. The cameraman scrambled backward, blood running from deep gashes, shock keeping him moving when pain should have stopped him. The animal snarled again, circling, trying to decide whether to re-engage. This decision would change everything. Because predators, like humans, had limits, and the next choice, made in seconds, would determine who walked out of the forest alive. The animal hesitated, and in that hesitation, everything shifted. The flare burned brightly on the forest floor, casting violent shadows that twisted the shapes of trees into something unreal. Smoke curled upward, carrying a sharp, unnatural scent that didn't belong in this place. The predator backed away a step, muscles tense, eyes locked on the humans but no longer advancing. It was not fear in the way humans understood it. It was calculation. Injury here meant death later. The guide did not waste the moment. "Move, now!" he shouted. They grabbed the cameraman, half dragging, half carrying him as they stumbled backward along the trail. Blood stained the leaves beneath their feet, every drop a signal screaming into the forest. The cameraman's breaths came in ragged gasps, his vision narrowing, ears ringing. Somewhere behind them, the animal followed, not charging, not retreating, just keeping pace at a distance. It was still watching. Predators that give up too easily do not survive. This one had already invested time, energy, and risk. It would not abandon the hunt without certainty. It circled them again, this time wider, testing their speed, their coordination. The forest became a maze of shadows and panic. Another branch snapped, closer this time. The guide fired a second flare, aiming not at the animal but into the undergrowth to the side. Light burst through the foliage, revealing movement for the first time. A large shape froze mid-step, eyes reflecting back with a cold, unmistakable focus. For a brief moment they saw it clearly. Not a monster, not a myth, just a perfect predator, scarred, lean, built entirely for this environment. Its body told a story of survival, old wounds, torn ears, the signs of countless past battles. This was not its first encounter with humans, and that made it more dangerous, not less. The animal snarled, low and deep, a warning rather than a threat. It had learned something important. These humans would fight back. The cameraman collapsed again, legs giving out. The guide knelt beside him, hands pressing hard against the wounds, trying to slow the bleeding. "Stay with me," he said urgently. The researchers stood guard, holding flares, voices shaking but loud. They made themselves bigger, noisier, more unpredictable. Everything they did was meant to break the pattern the predator had been relying on. The animal paced at the edge of the light, tail twitching, frustration building. Hunger warred with caution. The forest, once its ally, now betrayed it with unnatural brightness and sound. Then slowly the pacing stopped. The animal lowered its head, eyes still locked on them, and took a single step back. Then another. It did not flee, it did not turn its back. It withdrew with dignity, vanishing into the shadows the same way it had appeared, silently, completely, as if it had never been there at all. The forest sounds returned gradually. Insects resumed their rhythm. Birds called cautiously from above. Life continued, indifferent to what had almost ended. They waited a long time before moving again. When they finally did, it was slow and careful, every step deliberate. Hours later, they reached the edge of the forest, where help was waiting. The cameraman survived, though his injuries would mark him for life. He would never return to that forest again. Months later, reviewing the footage, they noticed something chilling. Long before the attack, before the snapped branch, before the silence, there were moments in the background. Slight movements, shadows that shifted when they shouldn't have. The animal had been there far longer than anyone realized. It had never been following blindly. It had been waiting, waiting for weakness, waiting for separation, waiting for the exact moment when confidence turned into vulnerability. The forest had not attacked them without warning. They had simply failed to recognize the warning for what it was. And the lesson was clear. In the wild, the most dangerous predator is not the one you see. It's the one that watches, learns, and waits until you finally give it a reason to move.